The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline.
Hello. We're back. Weird coincidence. So last night we were talking about... Oh, by the way, this is the Existential Crisis Hotline, just in case you didn't know. Maybe you stumbled upon this. But last night we were watching a video. We're talking about a few different things, but we were watching a video about the three different types of societies: sovereign, disciplinary, and control societies. And we were looking at some of the words and terms used in the Deleuze and Guattari book, Anti-Oedipus, Capitalism, and Schizophrenia. And it was really interesting because then last night after the stream, when I eventually went to bed, I was reading a little bit more of this book, which I read from on the stream last night as well. Capitalist Realism, Is There No Alternative by Mark Fisher. And this is the page I was on. So then I'm get to bed and I'm reading a little bit. And the next page is just really weird. It starts talking about Postscript on Societies of Control by Deleuze. Literally what we were watching the video on the night before. Or that night anyways. Kind of weird. But it's not surprising considering this guy was influenced by them. But as I was reading last night, it was really interesting. So this guy was a professor. And in this chapter 4, he starts talking a bit about his students that he taught. I thought I might read a little bit for you guys. Not too much, but some really, really interesting points. So obviously, if you watched last night, you have a bit of the context of the transition from the disciplinary society to the control society, where the system doesn't really require you to behave a certain way. Like when you're in school, you have to sit a certain way, take the tests, behave a certain way. And it's not that those things still don't exist to some degree, but the larger picture of society, like they were talking about in the video, is that the system analyzes you based on the input that it gets from you, like your information, depending on what the particular system that's observing you is collecting. And then it makes an assessment of you. So if you're looking for insurance, they've looked at all the data that's related to you in that context, and then they decide what insurance you get access to or what premiums you have to pay. So it's more about you get access to things based on whether the system analyzes all the information it has about you in the relevant context, and that's how you are controlled. So it's not so much through a disciplinary type of situation where they control your behavior. It's more through you just don't get access unless you meet certain criteria. So like, for example, if you didn't get a certain SAT score, you just don't get accepted to the college, right? So anyways, it was cool because then when I was reading this last night, he starts talking about all this in the context of this book. The previous chapter was about actually, it probably isn't that relevant to go over that. Actually, this part's kind of interesting too. Well, let me see here. I'll just read a little bit of the chapter right before. Mental health, in fact, is a paradigm case of how capitalist realism operates. Capitalist realism insists on treating mental health as if it were a natural fact, like weather. But then again, weather is no longer a natural fact so much as a political economic effect. That's just his parenthetical note. But let me just stop there for a second. Capitalist realism insists on treating mental health as if it were a natural fact. That's a really interesting statement, because when you look at the context of how we perceive mental health now, it's like, oh, you have this disease, this issue inside of you, and let me help you cure it, kind of a thing. It's like just something that arose within you. Not that it's being caused by something maybe larger in the system. So that's the implication of what he's saying. But I'll keep going, though. In the 1960s and 1970s, radical theory and politics, Lang, Foucault, Deleuze, and Guattari, coalesced around extreme mental conditions, such as schizophrenia, arguing, for instance, that madness was not a natural, but a political category. But what is needed now is a politicization of much more common disorders. Indeed, it is their very commonness which is the issue. In Britain, which is where Mark Fisher is from, in Britain, depression is now the condition that is most treated by the NHS, which I think is their National Health Service. In his book, The Selfish Capitalists, Oliver James has convincingly posited a correlation between rising rates of mental distress and the neoliberal mode of capitalism practiced in countries like Britain, the USA, and Australia. In line with James's claims, I want to argue that it is necessary to reframe the growing problem of stress and distress in capitalist societies. Instead of treating it as incumbent on individuals to resolve their own psychological distress, instead, that is, of accepting the vast privatization of stress that has taken place over the last 30 years, we need to ask, how has it become acceptable that so many people, and especially so many young people, are ill in the context of mental health? The mental health plague in capitalist societies would suggest that, instead of being the only social system that works, capitalism is inherently dysfunctional, and that the cost of it appearing to work is very high. Okay, so I'm going to skip the last little bit because he goes into some other points, but I'm going to go to Chapter 4, Reflexive Impotence, Immobilization, and Liberal Communism. And he's going to talk a little bit about let me read a little bit here, and then I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to where he talks about being a professor. By contrast with their forebears in the 1960s and 1970s, British students today appear to be politically disengaged. While French students can still be found on the streets protesting against neoliberalism, British students, whose situation is incomparably worse, seem resigned to their fate. But this, I want to argue, is a matter not of apathy nor of cynicism, but of reflexive impotence. They know things are bad, but more than that, they know they can't do anything about it. But that knowledge, that reflexivity, is not a passive observation of an already existing state of affairs. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Reflexive impotence amounts to an unstated worldview amongst the British young, and it has its correlate in widespread pathologies. Many of the teenagers I worked with had mental health problems or learning difficulties. Depression is endemic. It is the condition most dealt with by the National Health Service, and is afflicting people at increasingly younger ages. I'm sure this is true in America as well. The number of students who have some variant of dyslexia is astonishing. It is not an exaggeration to say that being a teenager in late capitalist Britain is now close to being reclassified as a sickness. This pathologization already forecloses any possibility of politicization. By privatizing these problems, treating them as if they were caused only by chemical imbalances in the individual's neurology and or by their family background, any question of social systemic causation is ruled out. Actually, I'm just going to keep reading because this is so good. Many of the teenage students I encountered seemed to be in a state of what I call depressive hedonia, which is like a weird term, right? Because, well, he's going to explain it. Depression is usually characterized as a state of anhedonia. But the condition I'm referring to is constituted not by an inability to get pleasure, so much as by an inability to do anything else except pursue pleasure. There is a sense that something is missing, but no appreciation that this mysterious missing enjoyment can only be accessed beyond the pleasure principle, which we've talked about on previous streams. In large part, this is a consequence of students' ambiguous structural position, stranded between their old role as subjects of disciplinary institutions and their new status as consumers of services. In his crucial essay, Postscripts on Societies of Control, Deleuze distinguishes between the disciplinary societies described by Foucault, which were organized around the enclosed spaces of the factory, the school, and the prison, and the new control societies, in which all institutions are embedded in a dispersed corporation. Okay, I'm going to skip to this part. Walk into almost any class at the college where I taught, and you will immediately appreciate that you are in a post-disciplinary framework. And this is really interesting too, because I spend a lot of time on Twitter, and there's always people posting videos of people being rowdy and students being crazy in the classroom, no discipline, people causing fights at a McDonald's. And it's always presented sort of like in a racist sort of way. Basically, presented as, oh, look, these people, this is just how they are, that kind of thing, right? No self-responsibility within it, no consideration of the system. But I just see this trend a lot, especially over the past couple of years, of like, it's a popular thing to post videos of, what was another example I was thinking of? There was people fighting in restaurants, schools being disorderly. Maybe that was the point. There's sort of always that kind of like, oh, and this was a realization I had earlier when I was thinking about this, like the whole idea of disciplinary institutions, and that now people are saying like these kids, like they just don't want to sit still. They don't want to behave. They have no respect for the teachers. Because we're seeing this now. This is a perfect example of what he's talking about. We're in a post-disciplinary society. And you can see it because it just doesn't work anymore. Like the schools are not able to maintain the children, control the children. And it's like blamed on poor parenting. It's blamed on, oh, this generation just doesn't care about whatever. And then you also have this trend of people, posting this kind of stuff and saying like, this is why we need to bring back, discipline, families, they stop spanking their kids and stuff like that. But I was thinking about that context of like spanking, or corporal punishment of your children. And like, oh, that's why that was done, because the way society was structured was everything was about controlling behavior. So people like my generation and younger now not wanting to discipline their children in that same way, it's because we're growing up in a different system. Like the system has changed, and and some people look at it as a negative, but from the other perspective, it's like we're not trying to control our children's behavior to fit into something anymore, because that's not the world we live in. It just doesn't work like that anymore. It's almost like an unconscious just movement within the new generations based on the fact that they find themselves in a different environment than people did in the 50s and 60s and so forth, right? So I just thought that was it was almost like, oh yeah, another piece of evidence lending to this kind of way of looking at things. Because also I always see this as the objection. People are like, well, this is why we should bring back spanking kids, and I'm like, well, it doesn't really make sense though, because if spanking worked, then why did people stop doing it? Like, if you can spank somebody enough that they know how to behave and they know what to do with their life, and it somehow teaches them something, then why did a whole generation just suddenly stop doing it if they were spanked? Like, why would they do that if it worked, right? So clearly, it's just not the whole picture. It's kind of like this whole thing of, well, we got to bring back phonics. Kids can't read. It's because we stopped doing phonics. No, it's not. Also, phonics was not effective anyways, and especially is not going to be effective now when we live in this world where, you're not going to be able to even impose that in the school. And for a lot of other reasons too, but maybe I'll do that in another stream. Okay, so walk into almost any class at the college where I taught, and you will immediately appreciate that you are in a post-disciplinary framework. Foucault painstakingly enumerated the way in which discipline was installed through our imposition of rigid body postures. During lessons at our college, however, students will be found slumped on desk, talking almost constantly, snacking incessantly, or even, on occasions, eating full meals. The old disciplinary segmentation of time is breaking down. The carceral regime of discipline is being eroded by the technologies of control, with their systems of perpetual consumption and continuous development. This gets really interesting. The system by which the college is funded means that it literally cannot afford to exclude students, even if it wanted to. So in one hand, it's like if you don't behave, they can't kick you out. Resources are allocated to colleges on the basis of how successfully they meet targets on achievement, exam results, attendance, and retention of students. This combination of market imperatives with bureaucratically defined targets is typical of the market Stalinist initiatives which now regulate public services. That in itself is interesting because I wonder does he talk about this? There was definitely a point where he talked about this other concept. I don't remember where it was, though. Or maybe it was just from that video we watched last night. But I'm just thinking okay, so why are schools... This combination of market imperatives with bureaucratically defined targets, think about that. That's the control system. Where it's okay, how do we control the schools to produce a certain outcome? We have to monitor all this data. So here's the data we're looking for for you to get funding. So then the schools adjust their goals, their targets according to that. So the target is no longer student discipline or a specific outcome that they've decided is best for the student. It's more what are we being measured? What's being measured of us that we're expected to show as a result? He gave this whole example. I was trying to find where it was. Maybe he talks about it later. Let me see. I know I read it. I'm not sure if it was something I was reading ahead of this or before. But it's like an example of, you have these stories in... wait, hold on, maybe here it is. He told this story of in Soviet Russia where they were building some kind of canal, and because Stalin was so focused on... Oh man, I wish I could find it. I wonder if was it in this or something else. I feel like it was in this though. Let me see if I can find it. It was such a cool point. I wonder if it was something else I was reading. Maybe it was in the... maybe it was in that... Oh no, wait, I think this might be it. If I can't find it, I'll just describe it. I don't see it in here. I feel like it wasn't that other book because just how I remember reading it was so like crystal clear. Oh wait, no, I think this is it. Yeah, okay, here it is. This part. This will make the other point I was making make more sense. Okay. This is in part a consequence of the inherent resistance of certain processes and services to marketization. The supposed marketization of education, for instance, rests on a confused and underdeveloped analogy. Are students the consumers of the service or its product? The idealized market was supposed to deliver friction-free exchanges in which the desires of consumers would be met directly, without the need for intervention or mediation by regulatory agencies. Yet the drive to assess the performance of workers and to measure forms of labor, which by their nature are resistant to quantification, has inevitably required additional layers of management and bureaucracy. And he was kind of making the point before of, one of the ways in which capitalism was promoted over communism was like, look how it just became like a bureaucratic nightmare and everything's a bureaucracy. A great example of this is if you watch the movie Brazil. It's a movie from like the 80s, I think. And it's just like this super bureaucratic thing. They also have a little bit of that in the later movie remake of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where like they have to go get a form and they're like, that's the wrong form, and they have to go get this other form, and they keep going back and it's like, well, you didn't do that properly, and because they're trying to get their friend out of some like jail or something. Okay. What we have is not a direct comparison of workers' performance or output, but a comparison between the audited representation of that performance and output. Inevitably, a short-circuiting occurs, and work becomes geared towards the generation and massaging of representations, rather than to the official goals of the work itself. Indeed, an anthropological study of local government in Britain argues that more effort goes into ensuring that a local authority's services are represented correctly then goes into actually improving those services. This reversal of priorities is one of the hallmarks of a system, which can be characterized without hyperbole as market Stalinism. What late capitalism repeats from Stalinism is just this valuing of symbols and of achievement over actual achievement. Grades in school are a perfect example of this. Like, oh, I've got an A student. He's got all A's. And it's like more important that you have the A, not that you actually learned something. As Marshall Berman explained, describing Stalin's White Sea Canal project of 1931 to 33, Stalin seems to have been so intent on creating a highly visible symbol of development that he pushed and squeezed the project in ways that only retarded the development of the project. Thus, the workers and the engineers were never allowed the time, money, or equipment necessary to build a canal that would be deep enough and safe enough to carry 20th century cargoes. Consequently, the canal has never played any significant role in Soviet commerce or industry. All the canal could support, apparently, were tourist steamers, which in the 1930s were abundantly stocked with Soviet and foreign writers who obligingly proclaimed the glories of the work. The canal was a triumph of publicity. But if half the care that went into the public relations campaign had been devoted to the work itself, there would have been far fewer victims and far more real developments. And the project would have been a genuine tragedy, rather than a brutal farce in which real people were killed by pseudo-events. So that was the context for the market Stalinization point. Okay, let me find where I was at. Oh, it actually was past where I was reading. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so going back to the school point. So there's some context there. The lack of an effective disciplinary system has, not to say the least, been compensated for by an increase in student self-motivation. Students are aware that if they don't attend for weeks on end, or if they don't produce any work, they will not face any meaningful sanction. I mean, this is pretty good explanation for the no child left behind idea, where we're not leaving any child behind. Okay, well, that's the standard. Okay, so we won't fail anybody. Cool. Does that mean no one was failed? No, they were failed, just not on paper. They typically respond to this freedom. So basically, students don't have to worry about it. They're going to get passed on anyways, right? And his point is they typically respond to this freedom not by pursuing projects, but by falling into hedonic or anhedonic lassitude, the soft narcosis, the comfort food oblivion of PlayStation, all-night TV, and marijuana. Ask students to read. I mean, this part is so cool. It's spot on. Ask students to read for more than a couple of sentences, and many, and these are A-level students, mind you, will protest that they can't do it. The most frequent complaint teachers hear is that it's boring. It is not so much the content of the written material that is at issue here. It is the act of reading itself that is deemed to be boring. What we are facing here is not just time-honored teenage torpor, but the mismatch between a post-literate new flesh that is too wired to concentrate and the confining concentrational logics of decaying disciplinary systems. To be bored simply means to be removed from the communicative sensation-stimulus matrix of texting, YouTube, and fast food. To be denied for a moment the constant flow of sugary gratification on demand. Some students want Nietzsche in the same way that they want a hamburger. They fail to grasp, and the logic of the consumer system encourages this misapprehension, that the indigestibility, the difficulty, is Nietzsche. I thought that was a really cool point, too, because like that book I was talking about the other night, that Deleuze and Guattari, it's not easy to understand, you know? And at first I'm like, well, is that my lack of vocabulary? Is that my lack of ability to understand? Because I don't know. Like, it's just not totally making sense. It's not totally clear. So as I started doing the research, like I was talking about last night, no one's very clear on it. Everyone has different perspectives. It's not clear. They're like, well, you know, no one really knows exactly what they meant by this phrase, but that they use a lot. And it could have been this, and maybe they mean that, and everyone has their own theory about it. So I'm like, oh, it's written that way. Like, it's meant to be difficult. It's meant to be something you really have to, like, consider. And I was explaining this to my son Max, who's 9, because he wanted to read one of the books, which he can read it if he wants to, but I was explaining to him, you know, it's not like something you can just read like a novel where it's just meant to make sense. And, you know, even there's a lot of literature like that too. But by contrast, like I'm reading that book Damon by Daniel Suarez, and very close to finishing that. And it's one of those books, in terms of the style of how it's written, like it's kind of like something you could find at an airport. You know, they always have like the bookstores at the airport, or like the convenience stores, and they'll have some books on the shelf, right? Meaning, I think anybody could digest it, you know. And if you contrast that with a book like, I think like Dune is a good example, or Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I'm trying to think what else. I think those are good examples. Like Dune, you know, when I've talked to people about reading that and they start reading it, and especially if they haven't read a lot of science fiction, or maybe they just haven't read a lot of fiction, people will say something like, you know, I just don't understand what they're talking about. Like, what does this word mean? What does that word mean? Like, why? What is the Kwisatz Haderach? You know, and they're maybe only like 2 chapters in, right? And I'm like, don't worry, it'll make sense later. Maybe not 100%, but it'll be explained as you go. And it's funny because if you've read Dune, going back to it, I remember, you know, we had some people over here at our place last year, and Owen he took Dune off the shelf and just started reading it out loud. I'm like sitting on the couch next to him, and as he's reading it, I'm like listening, because I had already read the book. I'd read the series. And he's reading like the opening scene, right? Whenever Paul Atreides is, he's like waiting for the Bene Gesserit, I forget the name, I forget the name of her, but I'm thinking Helena Bonham Carter. Definitely not that. It's something like that, though. But anyways, she's going to come test Paul. And his mom had kind of told him, like, she's going to come and they're going to do something. And he can sense that she's worried. And throughout that first chapter, he's, like, telling this woman about some dream he had and all these visions or something. And as you're reading it, you know, if you've never read it before, if you've never seen the movies or anything, you're kind of like, I don't know what's going on. Like, it's not that the words don't make sense. It's just you don't know what he's really talking about. But then when you read the book, and see, I only realized this after having listened to Owen read that first chapter again. I'm like, oh, they literally told you major plot points in the first chapter of the book, but you wouldn't know that until you read it. Because like later you read and you're like, oh, that's what he was talking about in the beginning, that vision he had or whatever. It's now happening actually in the story. So it's kind of like that with some things that have a lot of ideas packed into something, where you're not just going to get everything right away. And if you look at the context of social media now, short form content especially, it's like, I want it right away. And the way that the platform is structured, if the content isn't produced to satisfy that, you're penalized. If you have a track record of people swiping past your stuff and not looking at it, it will stop showing it to people. So that doesn't mean it has to 100% always be like the quick hit, but that's the overwhelming trend, right? Okay, so an illustration. I challenged one student about why he always wore headphones in class. He replied that it didn't matter because he wasn't actually playing any music. In another lesson, he was playing music at very low volume through the headphones without wearing them. When I asked him to switch it off, he replied that even he couldn't hear it. Why wear the headphones without playing music, or play music without wearing the headphones? Because the presence of the phones on the ears, or the knowledge that the music is playing, even though he couldn't hear it, was a reassurance that the matrix was still there, within reach. Besides, in a classic example of interpassivity, if the music was still playing, even if he couldn't hear it, then the player could still enjoy it on his behalf. The use of headphones is significant here. Pop is experienced not as something that could have impacts on public space, but as a retreat into private... It's the word... It's like the word Oedipus, but it's got the word iPod in it. Edipod. Ed-iPod consumer bliss. A walling up against the social. The consequence of being hooked into the entertainment matrix is twitchy, agitated interpassivity, an inability to concentrate or focus. Students' incapacity to connect current lack of focus with future failure, their inability to synthesize time into any coherent narrative, is symptomatic of more than mere demotivation. It is, in fact, eerily reminiscent of Jameson's analysis in postmodernism and consumer society. Jameson observed there that Lacan's theory of schizophrenia offered a suggestive aesthetic model for understanding the fragmenting of subjectivity in the face of the emerging entertainment industrial complex. With the breakdown of the signifying chain, Jameson summarized, the Lacanian schizophrenic is reduced to an experience of pure material signifiers, or in other words, a series of pure and unrelated presence in time. Jameson was writing in the late 1980s, i.e. the period in which most of my students were born, which would be referring to my generation. I was born in 1984, so I would have been one of his students in college, if I had gone to his university. But that's the age that he was teaching. What we in the classroom are now facing is a generation born into that ahistorical, anti-mnemonic blip culture, a generation, that is to say, for whom time has always come ready cut into digital micro slices. And then he goes on to use some examples from Neuromancer. Let's see. I'll just read that part because he talks about dyslexia. If the figure of discipline was the worker prisoner, the figure of control is the debtor addict. Cyberspatial capital operates by addicting its users. William Gibson recognized that in Neuromancer when he had Case, which was the main character, and the other cyberspace cowboys feeling insects under the skin, strung out when they were unplugged from the Matrix. If then something like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a pathology, it is a pathology of late capitalism, a consequence of being wired into the entertainment control circuits of hyper-mediated consumer culture. Similarly, what is called dyslexia may in many cases amount to a post-lexia. Teenagers process capital's image-dense data very effectively without any need to read. Slogan recognition is sufficient to navigate the Net Mobile magazine informational plane. Then I'm going to read this part too. Teachers are now put under intolerable pressure to mediate between the post-literate subjectivity of the late capitalist consumer and the demands of the disciplinary regime to pass examinations, etc. This is one way in which education, far from being in some ivory tower safely inured from the real world, is the engine room of the reproduction of social reality, directly confronting the inconsistencies of the capitalist social field. Teachers are caught between being facilitator entertainers and disciplinarian authoritarians. Teachers want to help students to pass the exams. They want us to be authority figures who tell them what to do. Teachers being interpellated by students as authority figures exacerbates the boredom problem, since isn't anything that comes from the place of authority a priori boring? Ironically, the role of disciplinarian is demanded of educators more than ever at precisely the time when disciplinary structures are breaking down in institutions. With families buckling under the pressure of a capitalism which requires both parents to work, teachers are now increasingly required to act as surrogate parents, instilling the most basic behavioral protocols in students and providing pastoral and emotional support for teenagers who are in some cases only minimally socialized. I'll just read this last paragraph here. It is worth stressing that none of the students I taught had any legal obligation to be at college. They could leave if they had wanted to. But the lack of any meaningful employment opportunities, together with cynical encouragement from government, means that college seems to be the easier, safer option. Deleuze says that control societies are based on debt rather than enclosure. But there is a way in which the current education system both indebts and encloses students. Pay for your own exploitation, the logic insists. Get into debt so you can get the same McJob you could have walked into if you'd left school at 16. Some good stuff. I know. Honestly, I would get this book, man. I was gonna start recommending it. Probably, I was gonna talk about it on the podcast. It's very short and very good. It's called Capitalist Realism. Is there no alternative? I don't see you on the stream last night, so I don't know if you heard any of it. But I was reading a little bit last night, and I mean, it's good. It's not like that other book I was reading from where you're just like, what the fuck is this saying? Like, this is very clear. Mark Fisher. It's really good. I haven't finished it yet. A little bit more than halfway through, but it's so good. He uses so many examples from culture. He talks about Wall-E. We talked about that. I think we talked about that last night. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's lots of really cool ideas in here. Okay, so, and I'm pretty sure, okay, I'm going to look something up real quick. I'll come back to this. Mark Fisher. Suicide, yeah, that's what I thought. The age of 48. Struggles with depression. Yeah, I got one of his other books, which I have not opened up yet, but it's about depression and some other points. It's really interesting. I think it's an example of somebody who really saw the problems in our system and just had no solution, didn't know what to do. Although he was very good at like explaining it. So I think he was a student of Nick Land. Yeah, I'm a founding member of the Cybernetic Culture Research Unit, associated with accelerationist philosophers like Sadie Plant and Nick Land. So, interesting stuff. Okay, you want to see something really weird? We'll switch topics for a second. Gray goo. Gray goo is a hypothetical global catastrophic scenario involving molecular nanotechnology in which out-of-control self-replicating machines consume all biomass on Earth while building many more of themselves, a scenario that has been called ecophagy. The term gray goo... Clanking replicators? That's funny. I'm thinking about like, I remember online when someone came up the term clankers as like a slur against robots. The term gray goo was coined by nanotechnology pioneer Eric Drexler. I wish I had never used the term gray goo, arguing that it inspired public fears that interfered with research on more conventional non-self-replicating nanotechnology. Imagine such a replicator floating in a bottle of chemicals, making copies of itself. The first replicator assembles a copy in 1,000 seconds. The two replicators then build two more in the next 2,000 seconds. The 4 build another 4, and the 8 build another 8. At the end of 10 hours, there are not 36 new replicators, but over 68 billion. In less than a day, they would weigh a ton. In less than 2 days, they would outweigh the Earth. In another 4 hours, they would exceed the mass of the sun and all the planets combined if the bottle of chemicals hadn't run dry long before. I just thought that was funny. Nanotechnology. Okay. So when I was reading that Anti-Oedipus, Capitalism and Schizophrenia last night, they were talking about... Oh, actually, it's a different one. But I wanted to go back to this guy because they mentioned this guy a bunch. So he's kind of like the classic example that a lot of psychologists use when they were developing psychoanalytic theory. Freud used him as like a case study. It was this guy in basically Germany. He was a judge. And he basically went crazy and then spent like, I don't even know, what, 30 years or something or whatever in like a mental asylum. Yeah. Eventually, like by 1899 through 1911, so I don't know, some 20 whatever years, he is in and out of mental asylums. Had schizophrenia. He experienced distinct periods of acute mental illness from 84 to 85. Described his second mental illness in 1893 to 1902. And he wrote a book called Memoirs of a Nervous Illness, which became an influential book in the history of psychiatry and psychoanalysis because of its interpretation by Sigmund Freud. I got curious about it because they kept referencing it in that Deleuze and Guattari book. Guattari. And let's see, look right here. This is crazy. Experiences. Schreber woke up one morning with the thought that it really must be rather pleasant to be a woman succumbing to intercourse. He was alarmed and felt that this thought had come from somewhere else, not from himself. He even hypothesized that the thought had come from a doctor who had experimented with hypnosis on him. He thought that the doctor had telepathically invaded his mind. He believed his primary psychiatrist, Paul Fleixig, had contacted with him using a nerve language of which Schreiber said humans are unaware. He believed that hundreds of people's souls took special interest in him and contacted his nerves using divine rays, telling him special information or requesting things of him. During one of his stays at the Sonstein Asylum, he concluded that there are fleeting, improvised men in the world, which he believed were divinely fabricated men as miracles to provide Schreiber with play with humans in light of a depopulation of the world. As his psychosis regressed, he believed that God was turning him into a woman, sending rays down to enact miracles upon him, including little men to torture him. His worldview. The fundamental unit of Schreiber's ruminations were what he called nerves, which were said to compose both the human soul and the nature of God in relation to humanity. Each human soul was composed of nerves that derived from God, whose own nerves were then the ultimate source of human existence. Schreiber's thought that God's nerves and those of humanity existed parallel to one another, except when the order of the world was violated, which constituted the fundamental premise of Schreiber's memoirs, in which the two universes experienced dangerous nerve contact with each other. For Schreiber, this was focused upon his personal and institutional relationship with Fleixig, who became a rebellious nerve specialist by virtue of his psychiatric power in contrast to the omnipotence of God. The peculiar universe of Schreiber's was mediated by the activity of rays, which could assume a pure and impure relation. These rays could be controlled by Fleixig or emanated strictly from God, who sought to influence Schreiber in his reality by divine miracles. The rays had the capacity for independent activity, though they were distinguished from souls and nerves, which were generally identical, which emanated from other human beings, deceased or living. Within Schreiber's cosmology, the universe as an observable reality, and the sun especially, was a partially independent realm, which God merely communicated through, using rays and miracles to influence at times when the order of the world needed to be adjusted. Strictly speaking, God only initiated nerve contact with human beings through dreams or inspired states, or when humans had become corpses and returned to the four courts of heaven, after purification to rejoin the nerve soul of God. I like how people heard this and they were like, oh yeah, this guy must be insane. And then they pick up the Bible. They're like, well, this stuff just makes sense. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so that's all. I thought it was interesting. I didn't know much about him. I actually ordered his book because I was curious to read it. Let's see. I mean, how is that different than William Blake? You might have heard of William Blake. He's a famous poet, painter, printmaker. That's definitely not one of his prints. That's just some random picture. What he called his prophetic works people thought he was crazy at the time. He was considered mad by his contemporaries for his idiosyncratic views. He came to be highly regarded by later critics and readers for his expressiveness and creativity, and for the philosophical and mystical undercurrents within his work. He was hostile to the Church of England, indeed to almost all forms of organized religion. Interesting. Also influenced by Swedenborg. Let's see. Poetical sketches. After his father's death, he and his fellow apprentice opened a print shop. Let's see. Visions of the Daughters of Albion. Look at that. Theo Tormund. Bromion represents the passionate man filled with lustful fire. Othon is the representation of woman in Blake's society, of a woman, who had no charge over her own sexuality. Blake has the Daughters of Albion look to the west, to America, because he believed that there was a promise in America that would one day end all forms of discrimination. So he's a lot of Greek mythology. Europe supported by Africa and America. All right. Look at that. Some of these are just like crazy. The Great Red Dragon and the Woman Clothed with Sun. My mind's connecting a bunch of random dots. The Red Dragon. So, this might seem totally random. There's this artist that I like, a musical artist called The Fall. It's the name of the group, and the lead singer is named Marky Smith. And he's sort of a... it's kind of hard to describe their music because it kind of shifts over time, but they started off as like a post-punk group, and they pretty much stayed in that general category, but the music evolved over time. But like he wouldn't write... like when he would sing... it's more like he's reciting poetry, but doing it in a lyrical way. I mean, honestly, it was kind of like rapping, but he's like this white dude from Manchester. I think he's from Manchester. So it's like rapping, but not the way you normally would imagine rapping. It's like if a white British guy did it from the 70s. And this is kind of like a random tangent, but he was also into a lot of stuff. Actually, I think I've talked about him before because... when I got into that music and then I introduced it to Katie when we were in college, and I think she was looking into some of their influences, some of his influences, and came across Colin Wilson. I'm pretty sure that's how she discovered Colin Wilson, and then she read The Outsider, introduced it to me, and the rest is history. But anyways, he has a lot of references to William Blake in his poetry / music. And when I was looking at this picture, it reminded me of Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs. There's that character named... what is his name? I don't know if you've seen that movie. It'll probably tell me in here. Yeah, what was the serial killer? Buffalo Bill. Buffalo Bill. Come on. Sorry for all the weird graphic images. Oops, what happened there? Maybe I'm just totally... The Red Dragon, yeah, okay. I knew there was some Yeah, okay, look. Oh, it's got nothing to do with Silence of the Lambs? So it's just my mind is it a prequel? Oh, it's a prequel to Silence of the Lambs. Oh, that's why I was thinking of it. Okay, yeah, yeah. Because I was thinking like, didn't the guy have a tattoo of the red dragon or something, and that's why it's called that? But it wasn't Silence of the Lambs. It was the Red Dragon movie, which is why it's called that. But the reason why it made that connection in my mind was because of William Blake and the Red Dragon, and that being connected to Silence of the Lambs, but also because William Blake was connected to Marky Smith because he liked William Blake, but also I remember there's this song that plays at one point in Silence of the Lambs. Yeah, see, Silence of the Lambs. I'm not going to play the video. But this is the song they play at one point in the movie. Oops.
Drink the long draft, Dan, for the hip priest. I said drink the long draft, Dan, for the hip priest. Motorway services. That's the head priest. And from the eyes he can see, they know. That's the head priest.
That's hilarious.
It's purple psychology. And not just an old lady. That's hip.
They're totally gonna hate that I played copyrighted music, but whatever. Yeah, it's so interesting because it says apparently, allegedly, refers to Marky Smith's prowess at tarot readings, which he used to do in exchange for drugs. I don't get any of that from the lyrics. But because I'm a hip priest, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's poetic or something. They can imitate, but I teach because I'm a hip priest. I'm as clean as a packet of chocolate treats. One time feast was a tray of grease. Hip priest. I practice bad, unfeared art. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's just so weird. Like, why would that song be chosen for that? I'm curious. What songs by The Fall reference William Blake? Oh, wow. That's funny. I just listened to this the other day. WB 2000. William Blake. The whole album, I Am Curious, Orange, was influenced by Blake's poetry. Interesting. Dog is Life, Jerusalem. Song features lyrics from Blake's poem Milton, a Poem, which is famously known as the hymn Jerusalem. Oh, that's why it's called Dog is Life. What was it called? Dog is Life? Yeah. You don't see rabbits being walked down the street, and you don't see many cats on leads. Dogs, pets, dogs, rapacious wet dogs. Sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. Euro dream of civil liberation for dogs. Society, secret society, inevitable nightmare. Of drift dog, pet dog, street bullshit. Dog shit, baby. Bit ass like dog mirror. What? I must have listened to this song a million times and I don't even remember those are the lyrics. That is so weird. Most Citadel, Dog Eye Mirror, Hypnotic School, Slaver, and... I mean, since we're on the theme of schizophrenia, not that he was necessarily schizophrenic, but it kind of is a bit like that. Oh, so weird. Jerusalem. It was the fault of the government. I was walking down the street when I tripped upon a discarded banana skin. And on my way down, I caught the side of my head on a protruding brick chip. It was the government's fault. It was the fault of the government. I was very let down. From the budget, I was expecting a 1 million quid handout. I was very disappointed. I became a semi-autistic type person. And I didn't have a pen. And I didn't have a condom. It was the fault of the government. It's so funny. Bring bow of burning gold, bring arrows of desire, bring me spear, O clouds unfold. And though I rest from mental flight, and though sword sleeps in hand, I will not rest till Jerusalem is built in England's green and pleasant land. I wonder if that's a particular... Milton, a Poem. I like how they have the lyrics to the poem on like the lyrics websites. Oh yeah, look, it's like almost a direct reference. Oh yeah, it's literally a reference. Huh, kind of makes me want to listen to that. Jerusalem Fall. It's like a double song. I'll just play this part.
Of the government. I was very disappointed. It was the fault of the government. I was told to go to Sweden, but I would emigrate to Poland and get catered for properly by a government.
I don't understand what that had to do with the poem, but you know, that's the thing about this stuff. It's not necessarily obvious. But now I'm curious about this William Blake poem. The thing I like about The Fall is, like, you can see when you read the lyrics how it's set up like it's poetry, right? Whether it makes sense or not isn't the point, but when I got really into listening to The Fall when I was in college, it like clicked for me. Oh, poetry is music. And I never understood that in school. Like, you know, I went to a prep school and we read poetry and shit, and I never gave any thought about it. we'd have to read poetry and analyze it and stuff. And they teach you about the rhyming schemes and all this. I'm like, the A, B, A, B, poetry rhyming scheme. Wow. I'm just going to type it like that. And look, it knew what I wanted. A poetry rhyme scheme is the ordered pattern of rhymes at the end of each line, denoted by letters A, B, A, B. Couplets, A, A, B, B. Pairs of consecutive lines that rhyme, often used in Shakespearean plays. Alternate, A, B, A, B. Enclosed, A, B, B, A. ABBA. Simple four-line, A, B, C, B. Monorhyme, A, 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 A. Triple A, 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 A. Etc. Shakespearean sonnet, A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D. E, F, E, F, G, G. So you can decide on a structure and then try to fit the information into it. The people along the sand all turn and look one way. They turn their back on the land. They look at the sea all day. Cool. The interesting thing too is with the way Marky Smith does it. If I were to read this, and obviously the version that we were listening to isn't exactly the same as this because the lyrics aren't the same, but there's probably multiple versions. But none of it looks like it rhymes at all. And yet, when you're listening to it, he makes it rhyme somehow. And he's very clever. He'll always say at the end of stuff. So he can make any line rhyme by adding the syllable at the end. It's pretty clever. But he's obviously making some kind of commentary on the government, bureaucracy perhaps. So I don't know exactly. And there's a lot of personal commentary he's making that probably isn't relatable to anyone necessarily, but it almost seems like some kind of political something or other. Euro dream of civil liberation for dogs. Black collar sends East German refugee back. Switch and crap pathetic. Seems a little bit like ranting, but damn. So anyways, I just thought that was so interesting when I would listen to his music and I'm like, oh, that's what poetry is. He's just taking poetry and putting music to it. So then you realize poets, that's whenever you read the Odyssey, or I remember in high school we had to translate the Aeneid from Latin into English, and in the beginning it says I sing of arms and the man, and I'm like, why did they talk about singing? It never made sense to me, but it's because poetry is a form of singing. So the poets, the bard, they call Shakespeare the bard. Anyways, I'm curious about this though. To justify the ways of God to men. The stolen and perverted writings of Homer and Ovid, of Plato and Cicero, which all men ought to contemn, are set up by artifice against the sublime of the Bible. But when the new age is at leisure to pronounce, all will be set right, and those grand works of the more ancient and consciously and professedly inspired men will hold their proper rank, and the daughters of memory shall become the daughters of inspiration. Shakespeare and Milton were both curbed by the general malady and infection from the silly Greek and Latin slaves of the sword. Rouse up, O young men of the new age. Set your foreheads against the ignorant hirelings. For we have hirelings in the camp, the court, and the university, who would, if they could, forever depress mental and prolong corporeal war. Painters, on you I call, sculptors, architects. Suffer not the fashionable fools to depress your powers by the prices they pretend to give for contemptible works, or the expensive advertising boasts that they make of such works. Believe Christ and his apostles that there is a class of men whose delight is in destroying. We do not want either Greek or Roman models if we are but just and true to use our own imaginations, those worlds of eternity in which we shall live forever in Jesus our Lord. Seems weird considering he used so much Greek mythology in his other stuff, but whatever. There's something, maybe he's kind of referring to the Greek and Roman philosophical infusion into Christianity. And did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountains green, and was the holy Lamb of God on England's pleasant pastures seen? And did the countenance divine shine forth upon our clouded hills? And was Jerusalem builded here among these dark satanic mills? So was he seeing like England was Jerusalem? Bring me my bow of burning gold. Bring me my arrows of desire. Bring me my spear, O clouds unfold. Bring me my chariot of fire. I will not cease from mental flight, nor shall my sword sleep in hand, till we have built Jerusalem in England's green and pleasant land. Oh damn, I'm not reading all this tonight. Katie's sending me the this meme going around about the X-Files. How there was like an X-Files episode where like Mulder, he's like the main FBI agent in the X-Files, and his like government source is like, he'll like meet up with him from time to time. I don't know if you ever watched the show. I literally watched every episode of X-Files when I was a kid. But anyways, he'll meet up with this kind of government source, and the guy's like telling him there is this outbreak of hantavirus, and they're trying to cover something up, some bigger issue, and something about negotiations with like the real powers. And he's like, who are those real powers or whatever? And he's like, I think you already know, Mulder. I'm like, wait, hantavirus? Aliens all in one episode? Just like when they're talking about hantavirus and they're saying like tomorrow or this week or sometime soon they're going to release all these UFO files. Very weird. Very, very weird. I feel like there's got to be other... There's no other ones? What is this one?
It's on forever.
These are all William Blake prints. it's just so cool. Like the way he expresses the lyrics with like the rhythm. I mean, it's like literally what you expect in rapping, but there's even a more like lyrical quality to it. He's not just trying to get through the line to rhyme it. It's more of like a lyrical singing, even though he's not singing. Anyways, I think it's interesting. Katie thinks that all of reality is scripted, apparently. That's what she's saying in the chat. I don't know. I don't know what's up with the hantavirus. Hantavirus. Contact with rodents. Like rats and mice. Although if you think about it, talking is singing. You're literally just singing. Like, what else is it? Can someone survive hantavirus? Yes. Or no. Yes or no. How did Gene Hackman's wife get hantavirus? Oh, just by inhaling airborne particles from dried droppings, urine, or saliva of infected rodents. Yeah. Awesome. Hantavirus now in 6 countries. What I don't understand about this story is that for a few days we were hearing that there was people on a cruise ship that had hantavirus and they couldn't find port. And then next thing you know, they're like, and the people who had hantavirus all went back to their countries and spread to the 4 corners of the world. I'm like, wait, what? They did what now? Like, yes, they all left and spread to the 4 corners of the world. 1 to each corner. I'm like, what? Yeah, just letting you guys know about that. All those people. Remember those people on that cruise ship? They all had the hantavirus and they were all like dying and stuff. And well, anyways, we don't think it really spreads from human to human. But anyways, yeah, they went ahead and docked and they spread to the 4 corners of the earth. Just letting you guys know. Just throwing that out there. Okay. Thanks for letting us know, I guess. We're monitoring them. Cruise ship hantavirus patients arrive in Europe for treatment. Man, I wish The Fall had done a song about hantavirus. I'd be listening to that so hard right now. 3 passengers have died and several others have been sickened by the Andes virus, a species of hantavirus. I love the name. Hantavirus. It's going to haunt us. On the Dutch flagged MV Hondius. Really? Mutating virus Hondius. Really? What is the meaning of meaning? I forgot to push paste. Hondius. Here we go. A family of engravers and cartographers. Map makers. Spreading across the map. Spreading the hantavirus across the map. You guys get it? Haunt. The dog. The dog? You mean like dog is life? Guys, are you kidding me right now? 2 patients with hantavirus and 1 suspected of being infected have been evacuated from the ship and sent to all 4 corners of the world. The risk is low. Rare rodent-borne illness. I saw this funny meme about it, and it was like the See if I can find it. That's the thing, dude. Like, our reality is becoming so unserious that these serious matters we just get like memed. Here it is. Live footage of the cruise ship kitchen before the hantavirus. The rats are making the soup, just so you know. That's what you're seeing there. So they're saying tomorrow we're going to get the aliens. 8 a.m., she says. The interdimensional beings. Yeah, right. Okay. Gray goo, we talked about that. Okay, I'll show you a couple more cool things. How are rats getting on the cruise ships? I'm sure they're on there. Rat enthusiasts? No. You think so? Oh wait, I talked about Grey Goo. We talked about Daniel Schreiber wanting to become a woman because God told him to. Check this guy out. So this guy was mentioned in that Deleuze and Guattari book. Adolf Wolfli, a Swiss visual artist. So basically he was super abused when he was a kid. Like, killed somebody, tried to kill somebody else. They locked him up. Went into psychosis and started making stuff like this. They gave him a pencil and they let him draw. How would King Osho respond to the hantavirus? I don't know. I'd have to ask him. I would have to ask him. I'll text him. Maybe he'll tell us about it sometime soon. But anyway, so this Wolfli guy made these super weird detailed drawings. General view of the island Neveranger. Neveranger? Look at that. He like came up with his own musical like scores. Look at this stuff, dude. He went full schizo. Scissors. Campbell's soup. Strained to a smooth power. Puree. I don't know why I said power. He's like writing home to his mother. He's like, Mother, the Campbell's soup is not strained. There's a little ditty he wrote. Yeah, I mean, all the people who produce art are probably just all mentally ill, on drugs. Oh, what now? Oh, Katie will love this. So, people actually took his music and tried to, of like the notes or something, I don't know. Well, Wolfli's work has inspired many composers. Oh no, is this just his... Yeah. Naturally enough, the question whether Wolfli's music can be played is asked again and again. The answer is yes, with some difficulty. Parts of the musical manuscripts were analyzed in 1976 by Helen Keller. Well, maybe that was the difficulty. These are dances, as Wolfli indicates. Waltzes, mazurkas, and polkas similar in their melody to folk music. How Wolfli acquired his knowledge of music and its signs and terms not clear. In 1987, Graham Revell released an LP entitled Necropolis, Amphibians and Reptiles, the music of Adolf Wolfley. This was on his own Music Brute label. Oh, where have I heard of that before? Music Brute. The audio compilation was based on the works of Wolfley and incorporated digital renditions of his compositions with additional sound effects. The LP was a collection of musical interpretations by Ravel, as well as DDAA and Nurse with Wound. Are you kidding me? That doesn't surprise me. You know I gotta check it out, guys. YouTube's definitely gonna flag this video when I upload it later. Oh, yes. Yes. Okay, let's see what this is. I want to hear the one that Nurse with Wound did. Which one was Nurse with Wound? Do I have to figure it out? I want to like know in advance. Search Google. Which tracks Nurse with Wound? No, not new. Nurse with Wound. Two tracks. Lee Tantaria and Great Godfather Nieces. All right, let's see. Where did it say it right there? I don't know what you're talking about. Oh. Yeah, you're right. I don't know if I like it or not. I mean, you know. Oh, I already played that. Wait, okay, let's hear Great, whatever. Which is better, this track or damn, I can't remember the name of it. That one with Lou Reed. What was that one called? I finally listened to it, by the way. I couldn't get my headphones to work, but I had left the page open, and then when I finally got them working again, I played that Lou Reed song when Sandra was like, "This sucks," and I listened to it, I was like, "Holy shit, you're right." What was it? Lou Reed. What was it called? It wasn't Lou Reed. It was like another name. Damn it. Well, I'm not going to make you listen to it again. It was just very like abrasive. Yeah, that was Saint Adolph's Comet. Apparently Saint Adolph was like a name that this Wolfley guy had for himself in his schizophrenic rantings. Katie likes it. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to judge it so quickly, but I feel like it's the kind of music that if you listen to it intently, it doesn't really make... I mean, this is just speaking for myself personally. I don't really get it. But if I had it playing in the background doing something else, it'd probably click. And I'd be like, oh. What is that song I was thinking of? No, it's not that one. Western Culture. This one's for Sandro. This one's for Sandro. Oh, that part is really cool. Wait, I gotta go back. That weird ass bass synth. Can you hear it if you're listening with headphones, like in the right channel? It's like real far back here. It's like this really weird deep bass synth. Why do we even need aliens? Like, we've already got this kind of shit. I feel like this is the perfect background music to reading Deleuze and Guattari. Experimental rock group from the University of Cambridge. What? It's official. An inherent anti-commercial attitude kept them at arm's length from the mainstream music business. Their sound was so mercurial and daring that they had few imitators, even though they inspired many on both sides of the Atlantic with a blend of spontaneity, intricate structures, philosophy, and humor that has endured and transcended the progressive tag. The two began playing a variety of musical styles, including Dada blues. Remember we talked about Dada? Neo Hiroshima. What? One of their first concerts was supporting Pink Floyd. In October 1969, philosopher Galen Strawson auditioned for the band. They're like, we need a new band member. Can you play philosophy? And he's like, I can do that. Sometime I should just do a stream on like deep dive into weird ass music. Oh, they toured with Robert Wyatt. That's cool. Oh. Music for socialism. Art bears. The Arto beats. I get it, because we were talking about Anton and Arto yesterday. See, so they're like basically political minded music. They were trying to like revolt from standards. That's all it is. And it's also, you know, on the surface it sounds like maybe terrible, probably, but there's more to it than necessarily avant-garde. What we've done is to literally teach ourselves to compose music which we could not initially play. Because of that attitude, we can go on forever. It's a self-generative concept which gives us a sense of purpose most groups simply don't have. And after 3 years, they broke up. Fred Frith. Art beers. Avant-garde, deeply more song-oriented. What have I heard from them? Best of Art Bears. Let's see. Rats and Monkeys. In the spirit of Hantavirus, maybe we should listen to Rats and Monkeys. I can't imagine this being dissonant or abrasive in any way. I assume it's going to be quite melodical. Wait. Very Hantavirus, like someone says, the best way to clear a party within minutes. A fave thing to play for siblings, relatives, and parents. I'm pretending not to like it, by the way. Rats and monkeys crowd the city as it crumbles into ruins. The world as it is today.
Out of town.
Oh yeah, I've heard this one before. Okay, I knew I'd heard this band before. The song, oh yeah, I like this song. The Song of Investment Capital Overseas. Doesn't that just sound like an awesome name for a song? Okay. This is actually really cool. Maybe, do they have the lyrics in here? I'll look them up.
Out of town, my work takes me out of town. I empty villages, I burn their houses down. I set up factories, lay out plantations, and bring prosperity to the poorer nations. Factory prosperity to the poorer nations. Prosperity to the poorer nations.
The Song of Investment Capital Overseas. So yeah, obviously they were kind of political. The sound of the world as it is today. That hook is crazy catchy. Well, anybody who loves this should check out the version that the Duck and Cover Ensemble did in 1984. Sound of the Summer. Duck and Cover. What was it called? The Song of Investment Capital? Duck and Cover. I don't see it. I don't see it. Maybe it really was. Oh, that's why I didn't paste the other part. Duck and Cover. Song of Investment Capital. I don't see it. Art Bears. No. Duck and Cover. No. Okay, I'll play one more song and then probably call it a night. This one is one of my favorite Henry Cow songs. And you know what? Just because I want to, I will compare and contrast. Alright, so here's the Henry Cow version.
Tell of the birth, tell how war appeared on earth.
Thunder and herbs conjugated sacred verbs. Musicians with gongs fertilized an egg with strong. Asleep in the sphere, her fetus was a nut of fear. She batted with her horn, split an egg and war was born. A miracle of hate, she banged her spoon against the blade. Upon her spoon this motto, wonderfully designed. Violence completes the partial mind.
Tell of the birth, tell how war appeared on earth.
Musicians with gongs fertilized an egg with strong. She batted with her horn, split an egg and war was born.
You know, that's interesting, that split an egg. Because we were talking about that Deleuze and Guattari, and they used that symbol of the egg as like the body with no organs.
Stacking the bunks on the empty aerodrome. Tinted
Wow.
green on the slender submarine. She shakes her gaudy locks over the deserted docks.
Where did that come from? See, that's what's so interesting about it. Is like, you might listen to the beginning and be like, what is this fucking noise? Like, these people don't know how to play their instrument. You know, like if you're just looking at it on the surface and maybe you're not looking too deeply at it, or you don't have any technical knowledge about how to play instruments or whatever. But then suddenly out of nowhere, it's like, oh, they can actually play. Which, not to say the other part is bad. It's like chaotic sounding. But then that part just comes in out of nowhere.
She a bunk. bones on the empty aerodrome. Tinted turtle green, Hans the slender submarine. She shakes her gory locks over the deserted docks. Come follow me out of dark obscurity. Follow my torch, pilgrims at the double march. Through meadows and seas, abattoirs and libraries. The pilgrims increase, most think they are led by peace. They got hearts with gusto, village villages with love. For that's what she has to, people get what they deserve. Upon her spoon this motto, wonderfully designed. Violence completes the partial mind.
Is that a phrase they came up with? Oh, yeah, no, okay. I was like, there's no way. Violence completes the partial mind is a line from W.B. Yeats. Whoa, I didn't ask to play the Ween. What the hell? Under Ben Bulbin. Whoa. Wow. Swear by what the sages spoke. Whoa. Hold on. The rhythm of it. Are they literally using the rhythm of this poem? Swear by what the sages spoke round the Mareotic lake, that the witch of Atlas knew, spoke and set the cocks a-crow. Swear by those horsemen, by those women, complexion and form prove superhuman. That pale long-visaged company, that heirs an immortality, completeness of their passions won, now they ride the wintry dawn where Ben Bulbin sets the scene. Here's the gist of what they mean. Many times man lives and dies between his two eternities. Versus you could just read it like, many times man lives and dies between his two eternities, that of race and that of soul. And ancient Ireland knew it all. Many times man lives and dies between his two eternities, that of race and that of soul, and ancient Ireland knew it all. Whether man dies in his bed, or the rifle knocks him dead, a brief parting from those dear is the worst man has to fear. Though grave diggers' toil is long, sharp their spades, their muscles strong, they but thrust their buried men back in the human mind again. You that Mitchell's prayer have heard, send war in our time, O Lord. Know that when all words are said and a man is fighting mad, something drops from eyes long blind, he completes his partial mind. For an instant stands at ease, laughs aloud, his heart at peace. Even the wisest man grows tense with some sort of violence before he can accomplish fate, know his work, or choose his mate. That is pretty cool. Because, like, I wouldn't have picked up on that rhythm just reading it normally. So now, if we go back and listen, I'll play this part.
Stacking the bones on the empty aerodrome. Tinted turtle green, Hans the slender submarine. She shakes her gory locks over the deserted docks. Follow me out of dark obscurity. Follow my torch, pilgrims at the double march. Through meadows and seas, abattoirs and libraries. The pilgrims increase, most think they are led by peace. They got hearts with gusto, villages with love. For that's what she has to, people get what they deserve.
Interesting. Okay, I'll listen to this one and I'll call it a night. So this is the version by The Fall, which they changed the lyrics slightly, but Let me see if I can find their lyrics. War the Fall lyrics. So it's similar. Tell of the birth, tell how war appeared on earth. Musicians with gongs permeate the autobahns. That's cool. All right.
Tell of the birth, tell how war appeared on earth. Musicians with gongs permeate the autobahn. She split the egg, a fetus of disgusting breath. And she split the womb. Cast a spell, a war was born. Come follow me out of deep obscurity. Pilgrims and songs swamp the empty aerodromes. Collision cars but no houses. Poor men at the double mush. No food for their spouses. They wait for the US drop. Russians sit back and laugh. One cat cigar and locks. Over the deserted docks. She casts the door and locks. Over the deserted docks. Tell of the birth, tell her what appeared on earth. Well, she cast a spell, split an egg and war was born. And pillage helps with gusto, even though they have no nerve. And she does just look on. And war does what she has to. War does what she has to. People get what they deserve.
Where'd it go? Even though they have no nerve. We always come full circle on this stream. All the way back to Daniel Schraber. The fundamental unit of Schreber's ruminations were what he called nerves. So that was a fun little journey, but it's like we live in a reality with constant anxiety, stress, pressure, war, confusion. Is it any wonder that people have mental health problems? And like, it really clicked for me. It's not like I wasn't aware of this before. It's just, it really clicked reading that point we were talking about here, where he says, by privatizing the pathologization already forecloses any possibility of politicization. By privatizing these problems, treating them as if they were caused only by chemical imbalances in the individual's neurology and or by their family background, any question of social systemic causation is ruled out. Like, our world is sick. Okay, I said that was the last one. I got one more. One more, since Katie brought up Zappa. I'm trying to remember the name of it. This has got to be one of my favorite Zappa. It's only a minute. I love this one. It's got this like kind of cool part that's like very like melodic, and then he like intersperses it with this like sort of almost like punk, like rapid fire statements about brainwashing children. Okay, hold on. Okay, so it's like a, yeah, it's not, what's the word? Doo-wop. It's like a doo-wop sound, and then it's like interspersed with these like choruses that are totally out of character of the other part of the song. I love the lyrics to it.
What's the ugliest?
Oh, and also, talk about full circle. Look at that album cover. It's like a reference to the Beatles. Oh, I want to look up who they put on their cover. We went through that the other day of like all the people on the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Club, Lonely Hearts Club Band. Look, they spelled out the mothers in fruit. Zappa's wearing like a girl's dress. That's hilarious. I wonder who all's in there. Everybody's got their eyes covered. That's funny. They're just talking shit about the Beatles. I think this came out in 1967. 68, it says.
What's the ugliest part of your body? What's the ugliest part?
Oh, you can't see my screen. Thanks. Thanks, Yo, for telling me. Now I have to replay it. Oh, darn. I want to look it up real quick. Who is on the cover of Zappa, Only in it for the money? Do they have like a list? Who's the Indian of the group? That's like a reference to one of their songs. That's funny. No, that's not what I want to know. Maybe they say it on here. Oh yeah, Flower Punk. Oh, that's such a cool song too. Cover art. Here we go. Lee Harvey Oswald, Lyndon Baines Johnson, Franz Kafka, Big Mama Thornton, a blues singer, Lon Chaney Jr., American actor. Huh. What? Sergeant Fury from a comic book? Pope Paul III, Count Orlok. Liberace, Eddie Haskell, the Leave It to Beaver guy, one of the guys from Leave It to Beaver. I don't even know most people. David Crosby. Interesting. Hieronymus Bosch, are you kidding me? What? That's so random. For those of you who missed that stream, we went like into like a deep dive into Hieronymus Bosch. That's funny. Captain Beefheart, of course. One of the greats. Herb Cohen. Interesting. Albert Einstein. Oh, look, they put Elvis Presley. That's funny. That's funny, man. And because I think, remember when we were looking it up on the Beatles album, they didn't want to put Elvis Presley. Zappa phoned McCartney asking for permission for the parody. McCartney told him that it was an issue for business managers, but Zappa responded that the artists themselves were supposed to tell their business managers what to do. Nevertheless, Capitol objected and the album's release was delayed for 5 months. Oh, that makes a lot of sense, because I have this album on vinyl and it's like inverted. It's like on the inside. Verve decided to package the album with inverted cover work, placing the parody cover as interior artwork. That makes sense. Zappa was angered over the decision. Schenkel felt that the Sgt. Pepper parody was a stronger image than the final released cover. Later issues of the showcased the intended front cover. Interesting. That whole album is so good. Where'd it go? What's the ugliest part of your body?
What's the ugliest part of your body? What's the ugliest part of your body? Some say your nose, some say your toes. I think it's your mind, your mind. I think it's your mind.
All your children are poor, unfortunate victims of systems beyond their control. A plague upon your ignorance, to the great despair of your ugly life.
Where did Annie go when she went to town? Who are all those creeps that she brings around?
All your children are poor, unfortunate victims of lies you believe. A plague upon your ignorance that keeps the young on the truth they deserve.
And if you listen, like on my headphones, it's like in this channel, there's like, I don't know if it's him or somebody else going like, and it's just so good the way he balances all of that. I'll play that part again. You can hear like that in right like in this channel.
Your children
Your mind. I think it's your mind.
all your children are poor, unfortunate victims of systems beyond their control. A plague upon your ignorance, to the great despair of your ugly life.
Where did Annie go?
It's so simple. Like if you take that part out, you just hear like dun 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 dun, and there's not much to it, but that one little element of like the chorus in there, or I don't know if the right word is chorus, but that vocal harmony part, it just adds like this whole other dimension to the sound. Try to listen to it without that part in your mind.
All your children are poor, unfortunate victims of systems beyond their control. A plague upon your ignorance, to the great despair of your ugly life.
And even the bass line, so good. Dun 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 dun.
Your mind. I think it's your mind.
All your children are poor, unfortunate victims of systems beyond their control. A plague upon your ignorance, to the great despair of your ugly life.
Where did I...
So cool. I remember we talked about Zappa the other day. We were talking about, that's how we got on the whole Velvet Underground thing, the freak scene in LA. This album's like kind of poking fun of a lot of that stuff, and hippies and people on drugs and stuff. The All Your Children section is brutal in this day and age. Yeah. Let's see what else they say. I know the answer. Your mind. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's like the punchline of the song. What's the ugliest part of your body? I think it's your mind. A plague upon our ignorance. It's definitely my mind, but my face sure gives it a run for its money. I heard the first part of the song played on Duckman. I don't even know. Oh, it's like some cartoon. Okay. That way of singing, it's John Lennon's. Okay. Where did Annie go when she went to town? Who are all those creeps that she brings around? That's the parents, right? That's like their, it's the parent talking, and then it's Zappa talking to the parents. In the immortal words of Bowie, they're quite aware of what they're going through. Dude, Bowie has some good songs too. Life on Mars. Oh, I know if I play that, they're gonna like cancel my whole fucking channel. Listen to the lyrics.
What's the ugliest part of your body? What's the ugliest part of your body? Some say your nose, some say your toes. I think it's your mind, your mind. I think it's your mind.
All your children are poor, unfortunate victims of systems beyond their control. A plague upon your ignorance, to the great despair of your ugly life.
Where did Annie go when she went to town? Who are all those creeps that she brings around?
All your children are poor, unfortunate victims of lies you believe. A plague upon your ignorance that keeps the young from the truth they deserve.
Wow. No wonder the music industry hated Frank Zappa. I don't know if they actually hated him. It wasn't commercial, though. Okay, I'll do one more. Flower Punk. That's a good one. Flower Punk at its original recording speed? No. That's got to be someone just slowing it down. That can't be real. I'll check that in a minute. I wonder if that's real.
Hey, Pop, where you going with that flower in your hand? Hey, Pop, where you going with that flower in your hand? Well, I'm going up to Frisco to join a psychedelic band. I'm going up to Frisco to join a psychedelic band. Hey, Pop, where you going with that button on your shirt? Hey, Pop, where you going with that button on your shirt? I'm going to the love end to sit and play my bongos in the dirt. Yes, I'm going to the love end to sit and play my bongos in the dirt.
Dude, there's so much going on there. It's so cool. Yeah, someone said punk before punk. It's funny because it's called Flower Punk. And it almost sounds punk, but this was in 1968. I don't know, was punk around then? In the 60s? When did punk? No, it was like the 80s, right? I don't know. Is that right? Mid 70s, yeah. Yeah. I was like, there's no way it was in the 60s. Mid 70s. Rooted in garage rock and proto-punk. One of the best punk type songs, one of my favorites anyways, is Search and Destroy by the Stooges. That song is like super intense. That's interesting though. It sort of has a punk sound to it. The record reflects their time more than many psychedelic ones. But I like the way at this part right here where you hear like that guy like yelling in the background, like the lyrics over like the person singing it, and then also the bass line. And it's like doon 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 doon.
Hey, Paul, where you going with that flower in your hand? Hey, Paul, where you going with that flower in your hand? Well, I'm going up to Frisco to join a psychedelic band. I'm going up to Frisco to join a psychedelic band. Hey punk, where you going with that button on your shirt? Hey punk, where you going with that button on your shirt? I'm going to the love end to sit and play my bongos in the dirt. Yes, I'm going to the love end to sit and play my bongos in the dirt. Hey punk, where you going with that hair on your head? Hey punk, where you going with that hair on your head? I'm going to the dance to get some action, then I'm going home to bed.
Somebody says, where'd it go? 60s 100 gex. That's hilarious. So they're saying it's a parody of the song Hey Joe. I'm sure I've heard that song. What are they talking about? Hey Joe, where are you going with that gun in your hand? Interesting. Interesting. I've listened to a lot of Jimi Hendrix, but I don't know if I... Hey Joe, Jimi Hendrix. I wonder if it sounds the same or if it's just... I'm afraid to watch. Let's see. Let's try this one. Oh. Okay. Yeah, I just couldn't place the actual song. All right. It doesn't sound like it, though. Interesting. Okay, I want to hear this slowed down version.
Hey, punk, where you going with that flower in your hand?
Oh, it makes sense because they sped it up. That's why the voices are sped up. Interesting. Hey Joe. I want to try that again. Hold on a second. How did that actually sound?
Hey Joe, where you going with that gun in your hand?
Interesting. It's so funny. I never realized it was sped up, but obviously it is. I just assumed, I guess, the voices were sped up, but it's like the whole thing.
Hey, punk, where you going with that flower in your hand? Well, I'm going up to Frisco to join a psychedelic band.
I wonder if he sang it that way on purpose. It's like the way he's singing it, it's almost like deliberately drawn out. So like when you speed it up, it sounds like it's even though it's a high-pitched voice, it's like singing it normally. That's weird. On the album version, speeded up at 115 BPM, Zappa's voice at the end of this recording can be heard on the right channel, while he overdubs himself on the left, where you hear a hippie dreaming about achieving his ideals. Oh, they're just describing the song. Okay. Oh, it's so weird. 7-8-7-8-7-8-7-8-5-8-5-8. Look, this person said it too. This song, as well as other ones from this album, always sounded to me like the only thing sped up were the vocals. Here the backing tracks sound slowed down, as I did. It's almost like it was recorded at this speed with the intention of speeding it up. Yeah, exactly. That's so weird.
Hey, punk, where you going with that flower in your hand? Hey, punk, where you going with that flower in your hand? Well, I'm going up to Frisco to join a psychedelic band. Going up to Frisco to join a psychedelic band. Hey punk, where you going with that button on your shirt?
Dude, it 100% sounds like he sang it that way on purpose, knowing he was going to speed it up. I mean, obviously I can't know that, but the way he's singing it is like not how he normally sings.
Hey punk, where you going with that button on your shirt? Well, I'm going to the Love Inn to sit and play my bongos in the dirt. Yes, I'm going to the Love Inn to sit and play my bongos in the dirt.
It sounds like someone just slowed it down. It says it had original recording speed, but that background vocals of the person like yelling sounds slowed down. Because probably I would assume what they did is they recorded at this speed, sped it up, and then layered the other stuff on top of it. Did they ever play it live? I doubt it. I doubt it. The grandmothers of invention. No thanks. Yeah, no, it just doesn't seem like one they would have played live. That's too bad. That's so interesting now. You can hear with the like the yelling vocals.
Yes, I'm going to the Love Inn to sit and play my bongos in the dirt. Hey punk, where you going with that hair on your head? Hey punk, where you going with that hair on your head? To the dance to get some action, then I'm going home to bed.
It's so weird hearing it by contrast because it sounds like he's slowed down, but obviously that's his normal speaking or his normal singing voice. The high pitched is not how he normally sings. That's so weird. All these years I thought it was Ian Underwood singing. Yeah, exactly. I didn't even know it was Zappa singing it. Was Clapton one of the voices at the end? No way. Eric Clapton was on Are You Hung Up? That's random.
Hey, punk, where you going with that flower in your hand? Hey, punk, where you going with that flower in your hand?
That's so interesting because if he had tried to sing it normally, it wouldn't have sounded right, sped up.
Well, I'm going up to Frisco to join a psychedelic band. I'm going up to Frisco to join a psychedelic band. Hey, punk, where you going with that button on your shirt?
And like the yelling voice sounds like a normal voice. Like it just sounds like men yelling.
Hey, punk, where you going with that button on your shirt? I'm going to the Love Inn to sit and play my bongos in the dirt. Yes, I'm going to the Love Inn to sit and play my bongos in the dirt. Hey, punk, where you going with that hair on your head? Hey, punk, where you going with that hair on?
There's like this guitar that gets like a little bit louder. It's like kind of coming in like that in both channels.
Hey, punk, where you going with that hair on your head?
Right here.
Hey, punk, where you going with that hair on your head?
It's like,
I'm going to the dance to get some action, then I'm going home to bed. I'm going to the dance to get some action, then I'm going home to bed. Hey, punk, where you going with those beads around your neck? Hey, punk, where you going with those beads around your neck? nervous wreck. Hey, Pop! Hey! Hey!
I'm going to the shrink so he can help me be a nervous wreck. How is that not on theme from everything we've been talking about? He said, golly, do I ever have a lot of soul?
Boy, this is really making me laugh. I can't wait until our record comes out and teenagers start to buy it. We'll all be rich and famous. When my royalty check comes, I think I'm going to buy a Mustang. No, I think I'll get a Corvette. No, I think I'll get a Harley Davidson. No, I don't think I'll buy any of those cars. I think what I will do is I will buy a boat. No, I don't know good either. I think I'll go into real estate. I think I'd like to buy a house and make it a whole house.
Because I know that the kids and their music are where it's at. The youth of America today is so wonderful, and I'm proud to be a part of
Maybe
this
after the show,
gigantic
one of the girls who sees me.
I never caught that part before. I think every time I've listened to this song, maybe 30 times, it's like I'm more like paying attention to the music and not so much what's being said, especially because like there's two different voices talking. But I'm listening to the left channel now where he's like, I've learned to play my guitar. I can sing and dance. And then he starts talking about he loves being a part of, helping the kids. And then he says something about, I love being a part of this great deception.
I don't know good either. I think I'll go into real estate.
So wonderful.
I think I'd like to buy a house and make it a whole house.
Because I know that the kids and their music are where it's at. The youth of America today is so wonderful, and I'm proud to be a part of
Maybe
this
after the show,
gigantic
one of the
mass
girls who
deception.
sees me up there singing
I'm so proud to be a part of this gigantic mass deception.
and twirling my tambourine and dancing will like me. And she'll come over to me and I will walk up to her and I will smile at her and I will impress her and I will say, hello baby, what's a girl like you doing in a place like this? I'm from a rock and roll band. I think we should... Is the song over?
Oh, that's crazy. All right. That was fun. Yeah, he's making fun of Hendrix, exactly. What happened to Hendrix? Alcohol and sleeping pills. Choking on his own vomit while intoxicated with barbiturates. Crazy. 27. Four years career. Yeah, maybe so. That'd be kind of interesting. Overwork. Although, yeah, actually, think about that. What was it? I don't know. Was it at livestock? I wrote livestock. What's the word I'm looking for? Woodstock. The livestock show and rodeo with Jimi Hendrix. The Great Mass Deception. Gigantic Mass Deception. Isn't this like in the middle of Vietnam? Do you think he's like imagining like F-4 Phantom fighter jets like dropping napalm on like Vietnamese people while he's playing this? Like, I feel like he's being like, I'm imagining he's purposely being like irreverent towards the song. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he's just on drugs. Okay, I have a theory. It was the height of world. Was it the? I don't know. When did? Yeah, I mean, 1975. Okay, yeah. So we're talking about the height of the Vietnam War, right? Oh no, it was the beginning, 1969. Wait a second. 1969. What year? Ending the Vietnam War. Okay, I was like, there's something going on before that, right? Yeah. Okay. So, let me think about this for a second. So the boomers would have been very young. This would have been their parents. When was Steve Jobs born? 55. Okay. Well, so maybe my theory doesn't work. But my theory was all of the hippies at Woodstock were tripping on acid. And they're like, Jimmy, go out there and play the Star Spangled Banner while they're all tripping on acid. And totally like fuck with their minds and infect them. So then, these were the boomers? Yeah. So then that way later, they'll build all this like crazy technology because they're tripping on acid. But then when we ask them, when we do the Patriot Act, they'll use all the technology to like spy on everybody and control everybody, manipulate their children and everything, and like get them addicted to shit. And like, I think Jimi Hendrix was a pivotal part of that. I think he was programming the boomers right then and there. All the hippies, boomers, hippies, I don't know, wherever they are. All the hippies, while they were tripping on acid, he was programming them with his guitar with the Star Spangled Banner. So that's my theory. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow night. Good night.